Hello there, Romans here, and welcome to my next music review. Today it's going to be Royal Blood, How Did We Get So Dark?
Music review. Music review.
Royal Blood is an English rock group that I first discovered shortly after they have released their first self-titled debut album in 2014. It was, I think, in September when I discovered them. And the very first song I've heard from the band, I watched the official video for the song called Little Monster. And after something like 20 or 30 seconds of watching, I was like, there are only two people? Where is the guitar player? I googled them up and I found out that this was a band consisting of only two people, the drummer and the singing bass player. The thing that really impressed me was that thick and heavy production. It just sounded like there were two guitars and a bass guitar all playing unisono. And I was so surprised to find out that there actually was no guitar player in the band. Royal Blood are probably not the first rock group duo thing, and I'm not talking about any duo, I'm talking about drum and bass kind of rock duo thing, but they are definitely the most famous one, and they were, in rock music, I think they were the last new thing that happened in rock music. And very interesting thing about Royal Blood is that they were already famous before they released their first album in 2014. In 2013 they already played some big festivals and they released a couple of singles and they built quite a big audience. This is the problem with most of the young and new bands, that when they release their first album they don't really have any audience to record an album for, and Royal Blood already had an audience. I think they've sold quite a lot of copies, which kind of made them quite a big thing in rock music. There was a lot of hype around them. And of course, when they released their new album, they had a lot of positive reviews because this was something really new at the time in rock music. They were very innovative, very fresh. And the fact that there were only two people and the production was sort of a minimalistic but pretty big was a big thing as well. But there was one question I couldn't help but keep asking myself when listening to the first album, which I really liked, especially as I am a bass player, and that was there anything new they could bring to the table? Because their first album was really great, but I was just afraid that the band, within what they did on their first album, there wasn't much room to explore. So I just kept asking myself, is Royal Blood going to become a band like AC/DC, whose pretty much every record sounds the same, or are they going to do something else? And it took 2.5 years for them to release the new album, How Did We Get So Dark? So let's get to it. I've heard the new album 7 times as of now. It's a pretty short album, so it won't take you very long to get into the record. So first, let's look at the arrangements. The very first song I've heard from the album was called Lights Out, which was their first single. And even that song showed me that Royal Blood actually were about to bring something new to the table. But I'm gonna get back to it very soon. First of all, the arrangements are very similar to the first album. So you've got this very heavy and thick wall of sound. You've got drums, and then you've got this mysterious bass sound. Like, how can he get that sound? I think that when they released their first album, Mike was very secretive. He didn't really want to say what was his secret of his sound. As of now, it is believed that he uses 2 amps on stage, even in the studio. So he uses a guitar amp and a bass amp, and he's got a big pedal board where his signal from the bass guitar is divided into 2 parts. One part, usually an octave up, goes through a lot of guitar pedals, usually distortion and overdrive and fuzz pedals, and this goes to the guitar amp. And then he's got his bass sound that goes through bass pedals, and therefore he's got this layered sound. So it's got like, you've got an electric guitar sound and a bass sound. And of course he uses a lot of I think distortion, overdrive, fuzz pedals. I think he uses an octaver and probably some harmonizer. Even I believe there was a phaser somewhere on the record. There is a very thick production. It sounds really great. And in terms of instruments, this is pretty much what you get listening to the record. 2 instruments. I think the only 2 tracks where you hear an additional instrument are a song called She's Creeping, where there's an instrumental break and you can hear that there's some riff playing and an additional bass guitar, I think, is playing somewhere over it. And then it's the song called Look Like You Know, where in the chorus it just sounds like you've got some arpeggio, whether on a guitar or on a piano, played every time. Apart from that, the arrangements are very similar to the first album, but the one thing that really separates this record a lot from the previous one is, and this is what I heard in the first single, Lights Out, are the backing vocals. There are just backing vocals everywhere. Now, when I've heard the first album, and it was back in the day when they released the album, I haven't listened to it ever since, but there were no backing vocals, and suddenly you've got backing vocals all over the album, and you've got also a lot of harmonies in the choruses. It just makes the record so much more song focused, and the songwriting is just so much better on this record. The melodies are just so good. Of course, there's a question, how are they going to execute this live? Because the drummer doesn't sing, so they are either going to play the backing vocals as a samples, or songs from the new album are going to be more stripped down on concerts, and they are going to be more similar to the songs from the first album. Now, these backing vocals, somehow, I'm not sure how, they make this record sound so much darker. Because you've got, for example, the first track, which is also the title track, How Did We Get So Dark? All these backing vocals are just so epic. In terms of the genre, you've got hard rock and sort of a old school kind of rock happening, even though that they use pretty low tunings, I think, C sharp. You got, for example, the song I Only Lie When I Love You, which is just such a badass song. I only lie when I love you. I only cry when I hit the ground. You only cry when I love you. Wow, I only lie when I make a sound. You've got also some psychedelic elements, some more bluesy oriented songs. When it comes to the song structure, there is pretty much a pattern that they follow. You've got verse, chorus, then you've got some instrumental break, as there are no guitar or bass guitar solos, and then usually again chorus. There are a couple of exceptions when you also have a bridge or you have some outro. I think that the only song that really stands out in terms of the structure is the song called Where Are You Now, where you have a riff, verse, some instrumental part, and then at the end is sort of like a chorus, but is it a chorus if it's only once in the song? Okay, now we're getting to the lyrics. This record has a very traditional rock lyrics, pretty much what almost every band in the 80s was singing about. So we've got a lot of relationship stuff. So most of the songs describe relationships in not the best state, usually relationships at the end, or a worn out relationship, or simply when there's something not right, like in a title track, How Did We Get So Dark, or in the songs She's Creeping, Look Like You Know, A Hole in Your Heart. Then you've got songs like, for example, Don't Tell, which I think is about a secret relationship and one of the two people wants to get public. Then you've got song I Only Lie When I Love You, which I think describes somebody who cheats on the other person. And the first single, Lights Out, is, I think, a song that criticizes a girl who is pretty, and her being pretty is probably the only good thing about her. I'm not such a big fan of these types of lyrics, as they don't have so much depth and so much meaning, but of course that's just my subjective opinion. What I must really appreciate is Mike's vocal performance. I think he gets a little more experimental with his voice. There are many songs, like for example Where Are You Now, where if he goes up in a falsetto, it reminds me a lot of Muse. And there are many moments like that. It sounds really cool. To sum up, I think that this is a really very good record. What I really appreciate is that they kind of pushed their style slightly more. I'm not sure if they are going to experiment more. I could just see them experimenting so much more with delay or with a lot of other effects. The sound is great. The songs are very good. They are just very catchy. It's a very badass record. So I decided to give this record 8 points out of 10, especially because I'm a bass player and I just love how much they can achieve with only 2 instruments. This is a great album which I would recommend dominantly to the fans of the genre and the fans of the band. If you liked the first album, I think you will dig this one even more. But generally, if you just like good heavy rock music, this is a very good choice for you. Okay, one more thing to mention is that how did we get so dark in Slovak means akože sme tak stemneli. If you like this review, don't forget to subscribe, to share, to like. And if you have heard the record so far, let me know in the comment section below what you think about it. Thanks for watching.